Yo, yo, yo!
Whoa! What the hell are you doing in my apartment?
We're gonna save heaven, remember?
Oh, god damn it. I've been given time travel powers in order to prevent heaven from blowing up at 6 o'clock, but it's a whole goddamn thing, and I'm losing my mind. Be not afraid, my name is Cassiel of Celerity. I'm an angel of the Lord.
Oh, crap. Am I gonna get crucified for this?
The whole fabric of heaven's reality will unravel and we will all die!
Those phantoms that showed up, they might be a tiny little bit my fault.
What the hell did you do?
Take these keys and zip over to the vault. There's gonna be a vault guardian there. Ask him to cut the shit and give you an artifact called the Holy Gosh Darn.
The Holy Gosh Darn? What do you need that thing for?
Did he just pass out?
He's looking pretty old, yo. Think we gotta get here earlier if we want him to be awake.
Ignore her, Beohorn. She's an angel. You never know what they're up to.
What the here are you doing here, Cassiel? Did they send you to take me to heaven? I'm not going back to that shithole if that's why you're here.
Swark!
Knew we would end up killing somebody. Always do. It's time to severely misbehave.
Who's that guy you're with?
Forget about him.
Hello, I'm joined by
Awesome.
Ozan. Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Whoa, no, and you're from. I should have kind of. You're from. Is it Norway?
Yes,
Yes.
I'm from Norway, but I'm born in Turkey, so it's a Turkish name.
Oh, okay,
But
okay.
I am a Norwegian. It's like I usually say, it's Norwegian software running on Turkish hardware. So that's what it is.
Well, I clearly do my research. Well, it's a pleasure to have you with us, Ozan. I am delighted that you could come onto the podcast because, as I told you before we started recording, I saw the trailer, not that trailer, the first trailer, that the announcement trailer, and I loved it.
Well, what do you think of that one?
I loved it as well. It's
So you did?
it's very funny. I was trying not to laugh out loud to ruin it, but I think it perfectly captures well, I haven't played a game yet, but we get an idea, I think, of the humor. And if I laughed during the trailer, which is a good sign. So I'm really looking forward to playing it. But we're going to talk about this game, and you also made two games because on the trailer it said this is set in the same day, I believe, as the
Yes.
first two games. So we'll talk about all of these things.
Yeah.
But first, I want to talk about you, Ozan, because you are on this podcast, and I ask everybody the most difficult question is, do you have any favorite adventure or narrative games that you love to play?
Yeah, I do. But adventure or narrative game, it's so
Broad.
It's so broad. Yeah, like anything, like God of War, they say is
Yeah?
adventure now, or narrative. I mean, it is. You go on an adventure technically, but don't
Literally
you-
in this case,
yeah.
yes.
But don't you technically go on an adventure on every narrative game? Like all narrative games is even like an adventure of the mind. So adventure slash narrative, that's like, but I do have a like certain aesthetic or vibe of game that like
Okay.
would be qualified as the things I at least like about adventure games. Like I love Monkey Island, obviously. The third one, which looks like a proper like cartoon, that's my favorite. But that's the kind of games I love that feel like cartoons. So my favorite game of all time actually is Worms Armageddon and Worms World Party. And
I used to play them as a kid.
yeah, I still play them, and I jump in on the Steam lobby sometimes. There are like 25 middle-aged guys on like me, and then we do a rope race or something. It's fun, but that's funny because it's such an old game. It's the game that made me interested in the possibility of making video games that looked like a cartoon. So yeah, Worms, like that's not an adventure narrative game, but yeah, I like Monkey Island. Also, I really love South Park: The Stick of Truth. I discovered that game like 1 year ago, and I was blown away by how much like the show, just the TV show, it looked like. And they had like minimal UI. They didn't have like a bunch of health bars and mini maps and stuff. Everything was like in the style of South Park, and it really felt like just watching a movie, a new South Park, hidden South Park movie I didn't even know about. So that one is one of my favorite narrative adventure games. What else? What else do we have? What happens? I really love The Wolf Among Us.
Yeah, so well, quite different, but yeah, very,
Yeah,
very good as well. And it's serious detective game.
it is, but it is something about like those noir detective
Mm,
things. It's either humor or the kind of mystery game that the Wolf Among Us is that appeals to me. So yeah, I haven't played that many like especially point and click games that aren't comedies.
okay.
I've played Monkey Island 1, 3, and 5. And I don't know, I think 5 is like frowned upon in the Monkey Island community or something. I've heard like people complain about it, but like that one made me cry. That was the first
Is
video game that made
is
me
this the
cry.
Telltale? Is this a Telltale game or is this a new
Yeah,
one? Yes,
the one that
episodic.
had episodes, yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I mean, I remember playing it when it first came out over 10 years ago, and I really enjoyed it as well. I thought they did a pretty good job. I
Yeah.
know it wasn't for everybody, and I know the episodic format, as you said, but I think they did a good job of giving a variety of gameplay. Like each episode was different. Like there was a courtroom drama,
Yeah.
and then they're in the whale, and it was, or maybe the other way around. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, no, I'm delighted to hear that you mentioned that one. I'm sure that if the guys from Telltale are listening, I don't know if they are, but I'm sure that they'll be happy to hear. But yeah, I know some pretty good options there. Sorry, were you going to say something else?
Oh no, Broken Age. That one looks like a cartoon,
Tim
and I
Schafer,
played that
yeah,
one. Yeah, Tim Schafer, big hero. I like to call myself the Norwegian Tim Schafer.
of
No,
course.
so, yeah, I'm like, hello. I'm also known as Norwegian Tim Schafer.
I mean, there is a resemblance.
I and then everybody keeps saying like all our games remind them of Grim Fandango, and we even use that like in the marketing for Manuel Samuel way back in the day. We were like Quap meets Grim Fandango and stuff. But here's a secret: I've never actually played that one. I haven't
Oh,
gotten to
wow.
play that one yet. And that one is like it's an adventure game. It's about the Grim Reaper, like and death and skeletons and demons and the kind of thing that I'm obsessed with. And somehow I still haven't played it.
So, so yeah, so we can that could bring us on nicely into. So you started the studio. You're part of Perfectly Paranormal Studio, and you're
Yes.
working with Yogscast Games. We're going to publish the Holy Gosh Darn. But yes, you
Yes.
mentioned your first game there that people have compared to Grim Fandango, Manuel Samuel. But you've never played Grim Fandango. That's very interesting. It's a great game. I would definitely recommend it if you like Tim Schafer, if you like his style of humor. But maybe this. I don't know. It's also nice that I think that you're being compared to it, and he's even though you haven't played it, so it shows your sense of
Yeah, I
humor.
mean,
Maybe
I we came up with the comparison. We were like, yes, this is like Grim Fandango. But I mean, we know what Grim Fandango is about and how it plays. And
sure.
I've seen trailers and gameplay stuff and screenshots. Back then, I had only seen screenshots, and I'm like, oh, this is an adventure game about a skeleton, and it's funny and stuff. And also, I listen to the soundtrack on Spotify all the time, even though I've never
Oh,
played
it's
it.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
it's so good.
soundtrack is beautiful, and the voice acting in that game, and just the whole story, just the whole. It's so inventive, noir set in the underworld or Day of the Dead.
Yes,
It is
I,
amazing.
I can't believe I haven't played it because it's also a noir thing, the other thing that I'm like
Mm.
into. It's noir and comedy and death in the same game. Like it's made for me and I still haven't somehow played it. It's
But
a shame.
I know these things happen. There's some games that we simply don't have time to get around to. Hopefully, at some point, you will, because it is fantastic. But so, Manuel Samuel was the first game that you released way back in 2016, I believe.
Yes.
So tell us about this game. Tell us about Manuel Samuel. What you just mentioned there, the skeletons. So what is this game about? What can you tell us about it?
So Manu Samuel is about this guy called Samuel, which is spoiled daddy's boy. He's like super rich. His dad is probably a billionaire. And so he has done nothing on his own in his life before. And on the first level, he dies by getting run over by a septic tank truck.
Okay.
And once he gets to hell, he meets Death. Death is like the Mickey Mouse of Perfect Paranormal. He's like our mascot. So he meets Death, and Death says, well, he doesn't say it as formulated as nicely as I do when I talk about the game because I wrote it 10 years ago as a 23-year-old. But
Wow.
he essentially says like you've done nothing on your own your entire life. So if you want your life back, you have to do everything on your own for 24 hours. But he says something else, so it's not as clear in the game. But then he resurrects Sam, and then Sam learns the hard way that what he meant by doing everything on your own for 24 hours meant also all of his bodily functions. So you have to breathe and blink manually. That's one button for breathing in, one for breathing out, and one for blinking. And then you have to walk manually, and that's one leg each leg. One button each leg. That's one button each leg. There you go. You can edit out all
Oh
the
wow. Ha,
ums I did before.
this sounds like control wise very difficult because control wise point and click adventure games you point and you click and it's usually easy. But this sounds
Yes.
like you have to work for it, like do everything
Yes.
manually. How does it work with the controls and how?
I mean, it is supposed to be hard, but the fun. I mean, not everybody gets it. Like we get a bunch of negative reviews that were like, "The controls on this game is awful," and I'm like, "Okay," but uh, I mean, the appeal is that you're supposed to fail. You're supposed to mess up things, and it's supposed to be funny when you do, and it's supposed to be like we have a narrator that narrates everything you do. So like if you press the same walk button twice, he'll do the splits, and then if you keep pressing the same leg, and he'll just like start flopping over the screen in the splits. So you have to press the other one. So you have to like alternate between two legs. And you can go to splits in one area, or you can do it like if you do it over the stairs, he'll fall down the stairs, and the narrator will comment on that. If you do the splits like while somebody else is in the room, the narrator will go like, "Oh yeah, I bet that guy thought that was cool that you did that," or like the character will comment on it. So we try to do it so in a way that if you mess something up, like something, the game will like react to it in a way, and you'll get some kind of feedback, and that's what makes it fun. So like failing is encouraged. Like it's not fun to watch somebody play uh, Manuel Samuel and never fail. Like I saw like a speed run of it on YouTube the other day, and the guy played it perfectly, and he finished it in like 40 minutes. And then one of the comments were like, "This is just regular Samuel. Like he just looked like he had a normal day." So yeah, that's the appeal of the game. Like you're supposed to like try to figure out what to do and then fall and start coughing. Like he tries to eat, but if you breathe in while you're eating, he like start coughing, and then you have to cough manually. And all he has to do is wake up, go to work, and like survive the day for 24 hours. But then things escalate ridiculously. Only in a way a 23-year-old could write it. So things escalate ridiculously, and you end up in like biblical. You end up in situations of biblical proportions. Yes, and not to jump ahead, you can edit
So,
this part out if you want to make it more chronologically
uh, not to
nice
worry.
to listen
So
to.
this is set in the same Tuesday as your other two games. Is that correct?
Yes, they're all taking place parallelly. I don't know the word.
Yeah, parallel.
Parallelly, and it's actually something you do in Manual Samuel that sets the events of the Holy Gashtan in motion.
Okay.
And you know, you don't need to know that. The cool thing about the trilogy is that you can play them in any order, and you'll always reveal like something about a different game. So if you play the Holy Gashtan first, and then you play Manu Samuel, you could go, oh, so that's what did it. Or you do it the other way and you go, oh, the thing I did in Manu Samuel, oh, that's what it is. You
That
know, or you can start with Helheim Hassel, and then, you know, you can do any order you want.
That's genuinely fascinating. I don't think I've ever heard of it. I mean, first of all, the controls, I can't think of any other game like it that you literally control the legs and even looking at the trailer that you can see him fail and just, doing the splits as you mentioned. And so that's the whole point, it looks like. But then, so this is a trilogy, it seems, but they're all at the same time. So a parallelically. I don't know
Yeah,
if that
I've
exists,
heard the
but
term interquel, like instead of a
yes.
sequel, that Helheim Hassel is a interquel to Manuel Samuel, and the Holy Gashtan is an interquel to both of them.
No, I think
Uh,
that's a fantastic idea because I mean, I think thing is, if it's a third, we spoke about Monkey Island, third Monkey Island. Now I played the third Monkey Island first, but I definitely found, oh, I'm missing something. There's two other ones. Oh, and I had no idea what was going on. I was like, why is he in the middle of the ocean on the bumper car?
yeah,
And then when you play the first two, but I really enjoy hearing that with these three games, you can play them in any order and you can go back. And I think that's a really interesting idea. So that is Manual Samuel, that is available on Steam, and that was released all the way back in 2016. And
it's
then you mentioned,
also
yes, go ahead.
available on every other platform.
Oh, is it? Oh my. So is this available on consoles as well? And
Oh yeah, Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch.
oh wow, that's fantastic. So people have great choice then to
Yes,
play. No, that's fantastic. So that is Manus, and I love the look of this game as well. And again, it's a really original idea that I can see that so with the control. So I'll do my very best to check it out because I am from what you're saying, it's very, very interesting. And then you mentioned Helheim Hassel, which at first glance doesn't seem like it's set in the same world or the same universe because I believe this is about Vikings.
it is.
So what can you tell us about Helheim Hassel?
All right, so Helheim Hassel. So when we did Manual Samuel and we released it, and I don't know at what point in Manual Samuel we realized that if we're making sequels or like other games, we want it all to be part of the same franchise. I don't know if it was supposed to be the exact same day from day one as we started to work on it, but I did plan ahead. I think I had the idea for both the Holy Gosh Darn and Helheim Hassel and like seven other games in my head somewhere as we were like wrapping up Manual Samuel, and uh, and then Manual Samuel did really well, and we
Congratulations, delighted to hear.
uh, thank you. And we were like, all right, what game should we do next? And we had some like wishes for our future and our like games or legacy or whatever. So there was two things we wanted to solve, or maybe three. One of them was we want to expand the universe. We were called Perfect the Paranormal. The idea was always that we wanted to make a world where every god and mythical being and pantheon is like fact, is real, and they all interact with each other. So we wanted to expand the universe. So we were like, all right, let's pick a different mythology now and start exploring those characters. And then, you know, you have your Greek mythologies, your Egyptians, your Norse mythologies, and all of those. So just to make it a little bit easier on myself, I wanted to go for Norse mythology because we live in Norway. We
Makes
have
sense.
a ketchup called after Idun, the god of tomatoes. I don't know,
God
and
of ketchup.
yeah, god of ketchup. Yeah, so just to make things a little bit easier for myself, we picked like we picked Norse mythology because I was like, all right, that's like around me. There's a bunch of books on it that I can check out. There's a bunch of other games God of War was either announced. God of War came out in 2018, I think, if I'm not super mistaken. But we know that that was coming out, and a bunch of different like American Gods was on, bunch of like Norse stuff. So it's not like sometimes when we would show Helheim Hassel on a game conference or something, like they would always show up like dudes in, you know, uh, rune necklaces and rune tattoos and go like, oh, those runes are wrongly translated, or no, that god that did it wasn't his son, or like stuff like that. And I was like, dude, it's just the setting. Like we picked the setting to expand on it. It's not because we were super, uh, religiously into like we have to make a Viking game, but we just wanted to expand the universe. And the um, second issue we wanted to solve was we didn't want to make Manuel Samuel again, but we also didn't want to make like something so different that you can't see the connection between the games. So we were like, all right, but Manuel Samuel was about controlling each of your body parts individually. How can we make another game about controlling your body parts individually without it being Manuel Samuel? So we started brainstorming that, and we came up with, what if you could like actually control your body parts individually? You can like detach an arm and control it individually. Like it goes off and does something, and then the rest of your body can go somewhere and do something else. So that's how we landed on the idea. Like we wanted to do something similar to Manuel Samuel, but also completely different. So in Helheim Hassel, you're this uh, Viking kid called Björn, and it actually starts in the Viking Age, but then you die as all Perfectly Paranormal
There seems to be a theme here
protagonists.
that you
Yeah.
the protagonists seem to die at the very beginning in
Yes, they
in your
always
games.
die in the very beginning, and then he gets resurrected 1,000 years later on the day of Manuel Samuel. Uh, and a different thing too was that in Manuel Samuel we featured death and war, which are the two horse people of the apocalypse. And we got some comments like, "But where's the rest of them? And when do they show up?" So we're like, "Yeah, cool." And then we have the mascots of Manuel Samuel, War and Death. Let's do the other two in Helheim Hassel, so that you get to see. I think that's like when it started to blossom that we should do them in the same day, because then you get to see why pestilence and famine weren't in Manuel Samuel. They were like busy with something else. So they're doing Helheim Hassel stuff. So Pestilence shows up 1,000 years later, and then she has to go to Helheim to pick up something for Satan. She works for Satan, and but she can't read the runes, so she resurrects Björn's body that happens to be there, so that he can translate the runes for her on their way to Helheim. And she is not death, so she messes up the spell, so he doesn't get resurrected properly, so that his arms, legs, and head fall off during the course of the game, and he can use that to his advantage. You can swap between body parts, and you can also combine them in any combination you want. Like you can combine the leg and leg and your head. He bites his like thigh, and then your head and a leg. And all the different body parts and their combos have like different stats. So your arms are really good at climbing. They're not that good at jumping on the ground. But if you're on a ladder, they'll jump really high. If you're two arms, then you'll become even faster on ladders. If you're two legs, then they just start spinning and you become really fast. And the legs can jump really high. But as you add more body parts to the leg, it'll jump shorter and shorter. But then you can put in another leg, and having two legs in your body combo will always double your jump to a maximum. But then that also gets like narrowed down, decreased as you add more body parts. So we had to like come up with all these jump stats for the different body parts and the different combos and the different speeds of the different combos. It was a nightmare. It was supposed to be easier to make than Manual Samuel, but we spent 2 years more than Manual Samuel on it. We spent 2 years on Manual Samuel and 4 years on Helheim Hassel. And we were like, yeah, but this one will play as a platformer. So none of that, take a step, you'll jump normally and stuff, but you'll have different body combos. It should be so much easier to make. And then it just
No.
wasn't. It was too many, and not to mention all the puzzle mechanics. So you have to solve all these puzzles with your different body parts to be able to advance in the game. And that's our like philosophy. We like to make a game that could work as a point and click adventure game, but then we'll add something on top, like a unique game mechanic,
Mm.
so that it's not, so that you don't have to point or click anymore, but you have to deal with something else than pointing and clicking. So they are essentially point and click adventure games, but there is no pointing or clicking. In Manual Samuel, it's breathing and blinking, and in Helleye Masel, it's detaching and attaching body parts.
So yes, it's a theme developing, with attaching and detaching body parts and then breathing and blinking and then the puzzle, the platformer element. I mean, it sounds very interesting. It sounds again very unique. How challenging would you say it is for adventure gamers, for people who like point and click adventure games? How in or from what you've seen of people playing your game, how did they find that part?
Um, with varying results. Sometimes people can't really figure out what to do on a platform puzzle segment, but they usually get through. And then we have this little problem with the last boss of every game we make being way too hard. We just can't seem to get the last boss, like the climax of the game, like it in on a not too steep difficulty curve, because I always want them to be epic, like something
Mm,
insane happens and you have to like struggle, but then that always ends up making it too hard. But people not figuring out those platforming puzzles is not on them, that's on us. Like that was the hardest part, like trying to make puzzles, because we know the game, we're making the game, we play
sure.
300 hours a day, and it's really hard to tell if a puzzle is too easy or too confusing. What we don't want for a puzzle to end up feeling like a chore. Oh, I just have to press that button. Like, why do I have to? I'm just supposed to throw my head up there. That's obvious. Like, if it's that obvious, then that's a chore. So we need the player to be able to think for at least a second to figure out what to do, so that, because then it's not a chore anymore. Then that's a puzzle, and yeah, balancing that was just really hard. And we always wanted to because we had so many mechanics, there are so many body combinations. Also, there are puzzle elements. You have levers that open doors, you have buttons that open doors, and then there are buttons that require a certain weight. There are buttons that pop back out if you get off them. There were so many mechanics, and we had to like, show them all off and in different combinations. But that was a really slippery slope when designing a puzzle, because it was so easy for it to be too hard, like too
I can
confusing.
imagine. Did you do much testing of the game beforehand? Were you able to do that and see how people were able?
Constantly.
Yes, like again, I can imagine.
Constantly, and we kept like, we never ended up with a puzzle we initially designed, because they were always too hard. And sometimes I would like, me or Gisle or somebody else on the team would like a really cool puzzle. We were like, man, that this one is so good. And then like, it's no matter where in the campaign you put that puzzle, like the player doesn't have enough context because there's too much stuff to remember. So the way we solved that was, if we made a puzzle that we were really happy with, we would just put it off the main trail and put it in like an optional area. So that those are for us and especially interested. Like after you finish the campaign, you can, when you start, like if you want 100% the game, get all the achievements and stuff, you can like start exploring, and then you'll find some more difficult puzzles. But I mean, and each puzzle is always, it's just we show off, we introduce a new mechanic, be it a in-game puzzle mechanic or one of your body parts, or the fact that you can now combine two body parts because you unlock your body parts as you progress. First, your head falls out, then your arm, and then it keeps going until all of your limbs are loose. And each puzzle is always here's a new combo you've never tried before, which you need to solve this puzzle. And then here's that same combo, but this time you actually have to think differently about something. So every puzzle is kind of like a tutorial in the main campaign. It's never the same thing two times in a row. It's always like a new element added in that you have to think in a different way, which I thought was cool. But yeah, again, I like to write like adventure, like stories, and also I'm an animator, so that's like my thing, and that's what we did with Manuel Samuel. But making a more traditional game, like a puzzle platformer, like in gameplay sense, it was uncharted territory for us. So it took a lot of trial and error making
I can
those
imagine.
puzzles make sense.
Well, I mean, I think it's definitely it sounds unique, and I can definitely must I can imagine it was probably challenging, as you mentioned, for you guys to implement all of these, and it probably added a lot of work to you guys. But yeah, no, it's definitely, fascinating idea, and I can imagine all the testing and everything that you had to do. But that was, and yeah, you mentioned you're an animator, and from what I can tell from the trailers and the images of all three of your games, is that there are a lot of visual kind of guys, a lot happening visually. It doesn't seem to be static. That there's just so much going on that is just really interesting to see as well. And a lot of the humor seems to be from the visuals and the animations,
Yeah.
which
The thing we really like to make the game look like a cartoon, as I mentioned
yes.
earlier. We don't like all of those like UI elements, and there's always like a fight between me and Gisle, our coder. But coder is giving him too small credit. He does everything that is technical. He's the like the project leader, but he's a logical guy, and he wants to he wants a bunch of UE elements and prompts and pop-ups that like tutorials and stuff to teach the player how to play the game, and that everything is clear all the time. Well, I'm like, no, it has to look like a cartoon. We have to keep it to a minimum. I don't want any prompts on the screen. And then we end up on a compromise.
Mm.
And but the different thing with that is when you don't have that many UI elements, you what we want is that if you look at a screen, that you don't mistake it for a screenshot. Like there has to be something in the screen that's moving, whatever it is. If it's a bush that is like just some wind hitting a bush, or if you're inside like something like water dripping, or just the make some fidget animations on the characters so that they stretch or something. um, Helheim has had so many animations that I didn't actually have time to make as many like acting animations that I wanted, because I'm the only animator in the
Oh
company,
wow.
but I also do the dialogue and the story and the casting and the voiceover direction, and we all do way too much, to be honest. But so on Helheim Hassle, there was so many different body part combos and so many different like puzzles that we had to keep figuring out, that I didn't have as much time to like make them truly as expressive as I wanted. Luckily, I got to do that on the Holy Gosh Darn though.
Yeah, that's a very good point that you make, because I'm just looking back over screenshots, and as you mentioned, it does look like there is something moving, either characters or something in the background, or the characters even like they're leaning back or something. And I think that really, because a lot of adventure games, I think by their very nature, point and click adventure games, and cost money and time to do animations, a lot of them are very static. That characters, at least traditionally, they'll be standing just straight and still and not moving, and it kind of looks a bit strange. But in this game, it does look like there is always something happening on
Yeah.
the screen, and even from the screenshots. So, did you take any? You mentioned as well that you were able to learn from Hellheim Heist for the Holy Gosh Darn. Was there anything else in particular that you were able to learn from making the first two games for your third game, the Holy Gosh Darn, that is about to be released, or probably is released by the people by the time people listen to this?
Uh yeah, a bunch. Let's see. Well, for the Holy Ashtar, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but it does take place in the same day as the other two games. And there are some characters that show up again that were originally created 10 years ago in the Holy Ashtar. And the style of the game is a little bit different and improved and stuff, but I still wanted to go back and look at the original spine files. That's the animation software that I use for the character in question. And you don't notice when you do it for as long as we have, and you do it every day, that you gradually improve over time and over so long time as 10 years. But like, I went back to one of the first rigs that I did for Manuel Samuel to check something, and I was like, how did this ever work? Like, how did I make this? Like it the animations. I watched the Manuel Samuel on Twitch the other day. Somebody posted it, and I was like, I constantly go, I wouldn't animate that way now. Oh, there's another animation I would have done differently. So yes, in the like just the art of animation, we keep learning stuff, but also in the second game, Hellamasa, we started developing our own animation system because I constantly wanted to improve on things that annoy me with adventure games. So, like, this sounds like I'm biased and whatever, but in my humble opinion, uh, Helheim Hassel is the best adventure game ever made. I'm sorry. Uh, and that's just because, and I say that only because the Holy Gosh Darn isn't out yet.
Of course, by the
Uh,
time we're recording this, this game is not out yet.
and and I don't mean like in the sense of the story or the characters or even the gameplay, but the sense of, for example, if you find something optional, then that thing has been spent as much time on as something that is not optional. Like all the characters you meet, they have like we'll hide the character in a mountain that only 1% of players are gonna find, and he'll be animated and voice acted, and he'll have a whole arc and a character thing and references, and he'll have rim light. He'll we spend as much time at every element, even if it's off screen. And something else that annoyed me with every game actually is when you go up to a character and then they say one line of dialogue, yeah, do hello, how's it going, or something, and then you try talking to them again, and then they say the exact same line in the exact same way. That
Yeah.
has always like taken me out of the immersion. Um, or something else that bothers me is if a character is talking about something and then something happens, their line gets cut off, and then the new line triggers, They're like, and then I said, oh, look, there's a. So it gets like cut off. So we made a bunch. We have our own dialogue system that we started on Helheim Hassel, which is it was around on Helheim Hassel. We started to experiment with alternative dialogues. So instead of a guy going, "Hello, how's it going?" every time, even if he says "Hello, how's it going," we'll have three "Hello, how's it goings." Hello, how's it going? Hello, how's it going? Hello, how's it going? And then we'll put those in a pool, and then they'll get selected randomly, so that he says it a little bit differently every time.
Oh, that's
Or
very
he'll
interesting. Yeah, that's
or he'll go, you know what? Don't bother me anymore before you go find that item, and then you can't interact with him anymore, so that he doesn't say, "Oh, don't bother me anymore. Go find that item several times in a row." Um, yeah, we are obsessed with a lot of that stuff in Helheim Hassel, And we improved on it, obviously, on the Holy Gosh Darn, because dialogue is the whole point of the Holy Gosh Darn. So yes, we also improved our like dialogue trigger systems and the way we trigger dialogue and stuff a lot in between the games. We noticed that on Manuel Samuel as well, because like if Sam does the splits, then the narrator would say, "Oh, he does a strange maneuver where he's flopping around," but then he would like say it the same way every time you went. Like first version of Manuel Samuel, he said that every time you went to the splits, and we're like, okay, he can't say that every time. So we were like, okay, how is he gonna say it then? Just once? And now, well, that's then if you're like stuck on a level, he's gonna be quiet for a long time. He has to react to the stuff you do. So that's when we came up with like alternative dialogues, but also making pools where some of the options are just empty, so that he doesn't. So it'll pick from a pool of like 10 lines of dialogue. That's we didn't have 10 lines of dialogue. I just say that to sound fancy. Say three, then maybe it's 3 lines of dialogue, and we'll also have 3 lines that are empty. So that's a pool of 6. Sometimes he won't say anything. Sometimes he'll say anything. And if he says something, then that's going to be 3 different things. And, dialogue things like that, we have obsessed a lot over.
It
Um,
it does sound like you've gone to a lot of trouble because I do agree, and even with the best adventure games, that they do say the same thing. That even Curse of Monkey Island, I believe, the LucasArts games, and I know a lot of this is programming related, and I'm sure it's very difficult not to have. But even in some of the very best adventure games, they have this, and I do agree with you that it just kind of take away from the immersion because when you go back and they say the exact same thing, and if it's like, oh, okay. So I'm delighted to hear that you are working around this and that you are just trying to keep the player immersed in the game. So and that you're constantly innovating and no, that all sounds fantastic to me. So looking forward to checking that out in the Holy Gosh Darn. What can you tell us about the story of Holy Gosh Darn? So we've had Manuel Samuel, Helheim Hassel, and now again a game that at first glance looks like it's completely different, but it's set on the same Tuesday as the
yes.
previous two games. Now, and actually one thing that I loved about the trailer, haven't played the game yet, but I love the character, the main character. She seems really cool. She seems like a character that we're gonna love playing as.
Yes, she is really. She has an attitude, and it's so yeah. The Holy Gashtan is about this angel called Cassiel of Celerity, um, and she's an angel. So wait, how do I do this? Let's see. So all right. The Holy Gashtan is about an angel called Castle of Celerity. She's just having a normal Tuesday in heaven when all of a sudden a bunch of phantoms show up, and then you're not sure yet, like what's a phantom, but as they show up, heaven blows up and everybody in it. So everybody in heaven dies. How does that work? How does angel die? I don't know. I mean, I have an idea. I wrote the thing, but that's supposed to be kind of like a mystery. But she ends up in the void. Like that's the lore. She ends up in the void, and she meets death from Manuel Samuel. Um, and he goes, "Yeah, what just happened was my fault. This is not supposed to happen, and I need you to help me so it doesn't happen." So what's up with those phantoms is that them showing up in heaven is a paradox, because God is ineffable, and like since they're not supposed to exist, they're not supposed to end up in heaven, and yeah, that's what a phantom is. Phantom is a ghost that isn't supposed to exist. Um, and as they show up to heaven, since heaven is only supposed to get souls that are supposed to be there, that's like the law. Them showing up there causes a paradox. It blows up heaven. And Death is like, yeah, that's my fault. I need you to help me. And the reason because he seeks Cassiel to help him is because Cassiel is known to be the fastest angel. And he goes, all right, I'm gonna let you borrow my time space logic piece, or like my clock. He has this magic clock that can rewind and fast forward time. And he's like, I'm gonna give you this, and you have to help me help you. Make sure that heaven doesn't blow up. Uh, and so you turn back time to when Cassiel wakes up that day. And the thing is, no human has ever gone to heaven. They've all ended up in hell. And, hell is a
Oh,
nice place. If you play Manuel Samuel and you can sit in Helheim Hassel too, it's a mostly regular place, but it has demons and stuff in it. So, but the angels, they're out of work. Like, there isn't any souls coming to heaven. So she hasn't, maintained her stamina or fastness since the Middle Ages or whatever. She hasn't worked in a long time, so she wakes up at 12 that day on the couch. She passed out eating honey doodles, which is kind of like a snack in heaven. So you only have 6 hours to save heaven because those phantoms show up at 6. And
okay.
then you learn that you have to find an artifact called the Holy Gosh Darn to stop the phantoms. You learned that from Peter, the only human that ever ended up in heaven on a technicality. So he's like a grumpy guy and he's like been there for a long time. And he's like, you have to go get the Holy Gosh Darn. You're the fastest angel. But he says that originally like 5:50, like 10 minutes before heaven explodes. But now it's 12 o'clock, so you have a little bit better time to go get it. But like he never got to tell you the details of how to get it. So you try to get it out of him, but like he won't tell you because he doesn't know that phantoms are gonna show up at 5 or whenever. So then this whole like chase thing begins. You're trying to find this artifact called the Holy Gosh Darn. You're not sure about like how to even use it. So you start. Even that's kind of like a film noir kind of thing because somebody says, "Oh, the Holy Gosh Darn is there." Like you get it out of a character, you go there and it's not. Like somebody has stolen it or given it away or something. So you're constantly trying to figure out where this thing is, but you constantly run out of time. So you have to rewind time, and you can rewind it as you want. And the character Castiel, all of this happens like in the confinements of the game. So when you uh, go back in time, it's not like just reloading a checkpoint. Cassiel will remember that everything that happened to that point.
Right. Okay. Yes. So it's not like starting from the beginning again completely. It's like you have all of this knowledge that you didn't have previously.
Yes, yes, and Cassiel will, if you trigger a dialogue with a character. So with as much dialogue as we have in the Holy Gosh Darn, we have. Oh, I don't even remember anymore. Is it like 6 or 7 thousand lines of dialogue? It's six. It's over 6,000 lines of dialogue. Manuel Samuel had 666, so it's 10 Manuel Samuels. Um, so every time you talk to a person, you'll go, "Hey, oh, hey, Peter," first time. Second time, she'll go, "Hey, Peter." She's like, "Oh, hey, Peter." So she remembers that she's had this conversation many times before. So that's when we like went wild with those alternative dialogues that I mentioned earlier in
Mm.
Helheim Hassel, because we tried to make it so that Cassiel actually never says something twice in a row in the same way. She'll constantly get more bored or more annoyed or more sad because she can't get the information that she needs out of a character. And the characters, they'll say it the exact same way, like in a
Mm.
normal adventure
Yes,
game.
because for them it's the first time.
Yes, so it is in the confinement of the game that they actually do that, so it doesn't take you out of the immersion. But before um, rewinding time, if you talk to them again, then they'll say something different because you talked to them before. So in the same time loop, they'll progress like their dialogue, but if you turn back time, then everything gets reset. So you go on this wild adventure. You talk to all these characters. You can upgrade your clock so that you can like bring things with you to the past, but they'll disappear again if you time travel with them. You get like this slot, and you have to put the item in it, and then it'll stay there until you use it. But if you replace it with something else, then the previous item will disappear next time you travel in time. We have to figure out like paradoxes like that. We had an issue where you could like infinitely duplicate items and stuff. Um, it was a whole mess
I
again.
can I can imagine that for you guys and for programming and for thinking of the story and just everything, were there any flowcharts that you created, or how did you
I
ensure that there
mean,
weren't paradoxes, and how did you, yeah, how did you set,
we
think about all this when, excuse me, when writing the story?
I mean, I wrote the core story first, and then what I do is I'd write like this is what's gonna happen with this character, and then we'd set that up. I'll do the all the placeholder voices myself, just to have like the timing of the jokes and stuff to hear them out loud. And then you hear like, all right, but what happens if I talk to him again? Like, how did we put up this conversation? And then, oh, all right, now he says something that doesn't make sense. But what if Cassiel knows this thing as she talks to him? And there's a bunch of like lines of dialogue on the node sheet going down. Problem is, you can talk to somebody at any time, and heaven can blow up at any time. So each node we have to check like what does Cassiel know, and is that gonna affect your dialogue choices next time you talk to this person, and how far along that dialogue is it? Does it make sense to talk about this thing at this point in the dialogue or later? Because I haven't even talked about the main gameplay, core gameplay mechanic of the Holy Gosh Darn yet. It's not traveling in time. That's just a symptom of the core gameplay mechanic. The core gameplay mechanic is skipping dialogue, because Cassiel is sick of listening to people talking about the same thing. So as you learn things, you have three different ways of skipping a dialogue. You can do a hard skip. You just on an Xbox controller, for example, you press B, and then that'll like skip the dialogue entirely. But that's in the confinements again of the game. So when you skip a dialogue, Cassie just goes, "Okay, shut up. I don't want to listen to this." And then the character will get mad. They're like, "Oh, that's rude. Like I'm not going
Because
to
it's
talk
their
to you
first time.
anymore." Yeah. And then they either won't talk to you anymore. Some characters won't let you skip. Like you'll go like, I don't want to listen to this, and then they keep talking, and she's like, oh my god, he's such deep in a monologue that he ignores me. You can always get out of a dialogue by like traveling back in time to before you started talking to them. But that's one of the things, because you have to constantly also run past, you're on a time schedule. You have to save heaven. And sometimes you have to run past your neighbor every time loop when you go back in time, and he'll try to pull you into this dumb conversation you don't want to have. So, one of the first things you have to do every day is skip that dialogue. And Cassel will progressively get more and more mad as you do it. Like first time she'll go, "Oh, not now. I don't have time to chat. Sorry." But like as the game progresses, she just goes, "Shut up, shut up!" As you run past them. So that's the one of them. And then we have a skip function called a to the point skip, and that's the based on what Cassiel knows. So if she knows something that will unlock a to the point skip, you'll get that up as a dialogue option, but not as a regular dialogue option. You get the dialogue option as the other character or yourself is speaking. You can trigger those dialogues as dialogue is already happening. So then you basically just cut them off. You go, oh yeah, whatever. Speaking of that, where is the Holy Gosh Darn? If she knows that somebody knows where it is, or so your goal, your mission is to like learn something, so that you can make somebody else get to the point faster, so that you can progress before heaven blows up, and then you just fine tune the run. You go, shut up, hey you, that guy's your brother, right? What was he like? Blah 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 blah. Oh, okay, okay, bye. And then you skip that dialogue, and now he won't talk to you anymore. But that's fine. You don't have to talk to him anymore. So you move along, and then maybe you get an item finally, and you're like, oh, great. And then you bring that back in time so that you can go somewhere else and learn something about somebody. So it's sort of like a Metroidvania, but instead of items, I mean, you get normal items too, but instead of like keys that open doors, you get information that unlock dialogue options. So keys are information and doors are characters, and the items behind those doors are new information that makes you progress further. And we came up with all this because we thought we love dialogue and we want to make games with interactive dialogue. But the only interactive dialogue I've seen is you pick a dialogue option out of multiple, and then that starts a branch. And we were like, but is there other ways that you can like interact with dialogue? So that's what we tried to like explore in the Holy Gosh Town. So we came up with the first things we came up with was skipping. And since you can tell somebody to shut up and they get mad at you, but what if they have some information that you need? All right, you have to get the opportunity to actually offend them. And that's when we were like, oh, maybe it's a time travel game. You can travel back in time. So we knew that it was going to be a game about skipping dialogue before we came up with the time travel aspect. And then that opened like a whole new door of, oh, but what if you can bring items with you back to the past? Or what if you can fast forward time if somebody's really slow doing something and you don't want to wait 10 in-game minutes for them doing something? You can fast forward time. So like that's how this game ballooned out of control. Because it's complicated enough starting a new branch based on what they're talking about or what you say. But then comes in the thing, you can skip the dialogue anytime you want during any point. So we have to check for each note, like what does Castiel know and what has this character said already? Because still, if you skip a dialogue and then talk to them again, we want that conversation to make sense without going back in time. Easiest way of doing that is the character going, no, I don't want to talk to you anymore because you skipped the dialogue and you were rude to me. But sometimes they'll go, oh, okay, what was I? Right, so as I said, and then like we check like what did they say based on the previous convo you had that you skipped. And then it will like continue or branch or something. There's so many branches. Like I ought to show you one of the one of the dialogue node setups. It's a spaghetti. It's a mess. Because it branches all kind of ways based on what Castle knows, on what time of day it is. Like they have schedules and stuff. So maybe they'll go, oh, I'm done at work. I'm not helping you anymore. We have some cases where Castle will go, please, you have to get to the point because heaven is blowing up in less than an hour. And those will only be available if heaven is actually blowing up in less than an hour. So we have branches that branch across both time and space. And also we came up with the exploration part that, yes, you can explore places, but you can also explore time. So you can try going somewhere and then just, flicking through the clock. All right, what happens here at 1 o'clock? Usually I'm not here at 3 o'clock, and then like something might pop up and happen. So yeah, that's why this game took more than 4 years to make.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that this game was made in just over 4 years, that alone is incredible because there's so much in this. And it reminds me a little bit, I don't know if you played the game The Forgotten City, which the storyline is different, but this is also, you go back in time and you rewind time, that you go back to a Roman city that's underground. And when something happens, then everyone dies and you go back to the same point again. And whenever you start, you meet this guy and he always goes, salve. And then the next time you can do that, then you can say, okay, yeah, no, I know this is happening in this. And then you can get this first character to help you. So instead of you doing the same puzzles and the same thing over and over again, you can say, hey, can you deliver this to that guy? Can you tell this guy or this person that thing, and then you go on. So, and this seems again that you have the information, and then you're telling the other people, but you're trying. I think it's fascinating that yeah, there seems to be like real world consequences if you just skip. Because for them it's the first time, but for you
Yeah,
hear this again and again. But then if you tell them to shut up, they're obviously offended.
yeah,
And
they
then
don't
I
know.
loved how you'd have to then, I'd say, unoffend them. And again, this must have taken you so long, but I really enjoy these mechanics. And yeah, it sounds very interesting. Now on Steam, it says that it's an action adventure. So is there much action in this game? So how is this similar to what you were talking about? How do you describe that?
It says action adventure. That's interesting. Well, there's no combat, so that's like you don't have any like enemies and stuff you have to fight. But there are some actionful sequences, and of course, like the stakes and the consequences and stuff. Like everybody is gonna die. That's like pretty high stakes. Um, and there are some violent characters. I could say, is that a spoiler?
If you don't want to mention it, don't
Um,
worry.
no, I don't know if there are any like violent characters. Like they won't kill you, but there are certainly. I mean, it's an action adventure in the same way an action movie is action, but there is no combat.
Okay,
There are some explosions. There's lots of explosions,
sure. Heaven
especially
blows up.
heaven blowing up. That's like one of them. But there are some, explosions and fires and frustration, and it's full of action, like dialogue-wise, Cassiel, and every like those to the point skips. By the way, also you might get a to the point skip because you know something, so you want the character to get to the point faster.
Sure.
But we don't want the to the point skip either to just be the same line of dialogue every time you use it. So first time she'll go, yeah. Speaking of whatever you just said, what do you know about the Holy Gosh Darn? But then the next time you do, she'll just go, yeah, just tell me about the Holy Gosh Darn. I don't want to listen to this stuff. So even like the new skips that you unlock will have variations and alternatives. And a variation is uh, she saying the same line of dialogue more and more bored or mad. And an alternative is just a different line of dialogue. So you can imagine three nodes with alternative dialogues. And in those nodes are actually pools where it will pull that dialogue from a pool of three variations of that dialogue. And sometimes, in some cases, she'll start off friendly and get progressively mad. So then you put that dialogue to a list. So she goes through a list where she gets more and more mad saying the same dialogue and then ends up on the last one, which is also a pool. That's just three variations of her saying that line as mad as possible. Because she said it 8 times before. Or if it's later in the game and she's already mad, you can just say, no, this is a random pool. She'll just pick one because they're equally angry. They're just a little bit varied. So, at some point I had to go through each node and check if it's supposed to be a list or a random pool. I mean, just that, it took me like
Mm.
2 days. Stuff like everything takes so much time.
I can imagine that all of this must have taken so long from a programming level, from writing level. I mean, I just have a headache just thinking how you managed to do it. But no, it sounds, as I said, fascinating. And then we heard in the trailer that, and you mentioned as well that she's different tones. She gets more mad and or calm. How was it to record the acting? Did you record or did you direct the actors as well?
Yes.
And how did you go? How did you work with the act? Because again, I love the acting just from the trailer alone and from the main character. She is fantastic, and they all are. But she seems to have gotten it just right. So how did you go about directing the actors and getting them? Did you tell them the story? Did you let them figure out themselves? How did you go about it working with them?
So first of all, we're a very small indie company. We're only uh, 4 people in the core team, like in the
Wow.
company. and then we hire like freelancers and stuff. We got a bunch of help with the 3D and things in this game, and we get freelance musicians and SFX people, but we do all the coding, animation, story, and art, 2D art at least, in-house. So the only reason we can make these insane games the way we do is because like it wouldn't work out if we had employees. We're all uh like it's our company. Like I could like the amount of time I've we probably worked for like 4 people each. um I couldn't ask an employee to do all the animations for the Holy Gosh Darn because they would have to work so much overtime and stuff. So the fact that we were like it's our baby, that's how we have managed to make these games that are seemingly made by 20 people, but actually it's just like 3 or 4. Um, and So the point of that was, yes, being as small as we are, we have to make things as efficient as possible. And voice acting is really expensive. I mean, expensive for us at least. Like, I'm not saying they get paid too much. It's just expensive. There's a lot of moving parts and stuff. So I like to do it as efficient as possible. And I mean, like 50% of our budget always goes to voice acting and stuff. So the first thing I had to figure out in doing this as efficiently as possible was who to cast. We get in auditions and I listen to the auditions, and I'm sorry, but I tend to lean towards actors I've worked with before. If I know them a little bit, then that makes the whole if I know like what they can do. If I get a audition from somebody I've worked with before for a completely different character and they sound like way different as that character, then I know that, oh, I can direct them any way I want because they have a huge range. Like I'll try to make that assessment. So I tend to lean towards people I have worked with before. Also, the games being in the same universe, I like to reuse characters and make them show up and stuff, which
That
was
makes
hard for
sense.
this game. It was hard for this game because most of our cast is busy doing other things since the game is taking place the same Tuesday, which was a different nightmare, by the way, making this fit, making all the games intertwine and fit. And I'm like, oh, it would be genius if this character showed up here. Oh, wait, but what time is it? And then like, oh, they can't show up here before 2, but I need this puzzle to take place at 1. Okay, I can't use them. Like stuff like that, making all that fit
Because
as
they're
well.
already in Helheim Hassel at the time.
Yeah. So the first thing I did was, like in Cassiel's case, we actually had a bunch of potential potential candidates from the auditions, and then we tried to narrow them down. I think I had worked with most of the people that made it to the last round in our casting process. So after that, what we do is you don't have time to like tell them all the details of the game or what's going down. Um, but when we put out the casting call, there will be description of what the game is about and a description of the character, and then we won't send out the casting call before the character is like done, designed and colored and everything, because we work in iterations and we iterate all the time. Like nothing ever gets set in stone before the real voice acting is in the game. And that's the thing we try to do the very last. In this case, we did it over a year ago, and there was still like 1 year, more than a year worth of work left, like polishing and fixing bugs and stuff. But the character will be pretty much done. And I will have done the placeholder voices at this point for years, So I know the characters in and out. But in Cassia's case, I think she has like 2 or 3 thousand lines of dialogue. It took us either 14 or 17 hours to record. Um, so what I do is I put them in an Excel sheet, all the lines of dialogue that this character has, and then I'll have with all the branches, it's gonna get shuffled, and you output that from Unity. All the dialogue is gonna get shuffled in some way. Like there's no way of making it chronological, like in like a cartoon. You know, in an animation film, you can begin with the first line of dialogue this character has, and then just work your way down. Not gonna happen in a game, especially not one of this nature where things branches up and down in time and space. So it's always a jumbled mess. We try to sort it by like sections and levels and worlds and stuff. But we'll have another column that um, says the previous line, whatever it is. If it's a continuation from a different line she did, or if it's a response to something a character says. So each line has a previous line. And what I'll do is I'll read the previous line in character because I've done the placeholder voices for so long. So I'll just go, hey, Cassio, where are you going in such a hurry? And then that gets her in the, that gets her going, and then she'll respond. And I'll always go, all right, let's do two. If I like it, I'll say, let's move on. Or if I have some direction, I'll say that instead, and then we'll do two more. And sometimes I'll go, okay, can you give me a variation of that? So Rebecca Schweitzer, that's Cassie's voice. I worked with her before. I loved working with her. It was on Manuel Samuel. She had the voice of the old lady that dies, and like bystanders on a certain level that go, and like she was really silly and funny, and I liked that. So I knew that that we were gonna, click. I didn't direct her back in Manuel Samuel, but I did it in the Holy Gosh Darn. So I mean, sometimes it'll start kind of slow. I'll go, no, she's not. I mean, I didn't do that much with Rebecca actually, but let's say a different character that has a bunch of dialogue, and it'll start slow, and I'll go like, oh no, you have to tone this one down. Like this is a character that's just chilling, or he's bored, or he's not that over the top. And it'll start slow, but as the hours progress, like I mean, they're professionals, So after a little while, they just go ding, 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 and I'll very rarely have to give any direction. And in Rebecca's case, we would knock out up to 200 lines of dialogue an hour. And, we did it every Tuesday for about a month.
On a Tuesday, literally, like the day that game is set.
Yeah. And, I would look forward to those sessions, and I would have sessions in between. Most of the time, it's someone you haven't worked with before. So hello, and you introduce yourself, and then you tell them like what the deal is. All right, here's the Excel thing. I want you to do two lines. Then I'll either give direction or the previous line, or we'll move on. But in the case of a character that has 300 lines of dialogue, week two, we'll just get going. Like there's no introductions or me explaining the deal or her asking like how would this character react to that. Like she knows the character, she's been the character for hours, and then we just smash through it. And if I recast the character, an actor I mean, as a character they've been before, Death is in the game, so that's Damon Marhefka, our Mickey Mouse, and he knows Death. I don't have to give him any direction. He did Death in both Manuel Samuel and Helheim Hassel. So he just takes a look at the first line and he does his thing, and I'm like, yeah, that's the one. And then, we move on. But yeah, it's really, I mean, in our case, being a small company and that many lines of dialogue, and the dialogue being such a big chunk of our budget, I don't know if it was actually 50%, by the way. Don't quote me on that. You can
It's a lot.
you can include it, but I don't deal with that those aspects of the production. I'm like the creative lead. I'm like, don't give me any
Sure.
paperwork. I don't want to know. I did have an Excel sheet with like trying to make I had a budget for dialogue, so I had to also go in and adjust the dialogue. Um, for example, in a voice actor's case, you hire them even if the session takes 10 minutes. You pay for either half an hour or a full hour. So I would notice that, oh, this character has 210 lines of dialogue. Like we might go 1 hour, 15 minutes. That's not good. So
Mm,
either I'll cut it down to 200 or 100 or whatever I said, like so that we can do it in 1 hour, or I'll add more variations and stuff to him so that we get our money's worth for the second hour. So I had a lot of logistics that I had to go through with that to make it all fit in our budget. I did not compromise in Cassiel and Death's case. I was like, I don't want to have them do a bunch of unnecessary things. I'm not going to cut anything from them.
mm.
Like, I don't want to compromise that. But yeah, being efficient is the main key. So that Excel file with the previous lines of dialogue and stuff, that really helps in the efficiency. And I mean, those voice actors, they're professionals, and I have at this point recorded my fair share of, I mean, directed my fair share of voiceover sessions. So I don't know. It's you just pick it up. I didn't know what I was
Sure,
doing
you
in
have.
Helheim Hassel when we started. Helheim has 3,000 lines of dialogue. So that's the first game I directed. And we also did it like over um, internet, over Zoom and stuff, which was, I didn't know that. I thought I had to like go to America and stuff and go to the studio. I was like getting ready for that. And I'm like, oh, we can do it
Over
um,
Zoom. That's
over the Zoom. Okay. Uh, and the first session I ever directed was Balder the Beautiful for Helheim Hassel with Dave, and he we started off with the song that he sings because I wanted to start like at the hardest possible thing, and then like it can only get easier from here. And I was so nervous, I had no idea what I was doing. And then he comes in and he's like, "Hey, I'm Dave," and it's a super cool guy. And then he like does this song, and I'm like, "All right, we might pull this off. I think I can." Yeah, all right, let's do the dialogue now. And then like the dialogue seemed easier to do after the song, and then the upcoming sessions I got more and more efficient with the direction and like the terms that you use. Um, like I don't like to go, oh, don't say it like that, say it like this, blah 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 blah, because I've like done the voice. I don't like
mm,
to do that. I want them to do their own like acting into it, not just copying like what I did. But I learned like a bunch of terms, like, oh, can you split the last two words? Or I'll say, can you land that word so that it goes like, what do you mean? Or I'll say, can you lift that word? What do you mean? So I like learn terms like that to
mm.
like get what I want out of them. And I learned it from them because I would go, can you make that last word like a little bit more and then somebody would say, oh, you mean land it? And I'm like, yeah, yeah. And then next session I'll say, oh, can you land that? So by doing it, I just learned like all these different terms when directing
Oh,
voiceover.
fantastic. So you have learned as you go along. Well, from the trailer, the acting and the visuals and the concept, and as you mentioned, all the work that you're doing, it all sounds really, really fascinating, genuinely. And that is the Holy Gosh Darn. And yeah, I think Rebecca did a great job just from the trailer alone. I think she just nailed it, and it seems like everybody. So the Holy Gosh Darn is available on the 26th of September. Is that available on PC and console?
Yes, Steam, Xbox, PlayStation, and the Switch.
And everywhere at once,
Yeah, I think it'll come out
or more or less.
uh like as you enter the 26th, like midnight 25th,
Sure.
kinda. What is it like? If you're up late on the 25th, then it's coming out on the 25th, if you know what I mean.
So
It's
if
coming
you're
past
waiting
12.
for
Yeah.
for this midnight
Uh,
release, that's
but on Steam, I think it comes out at 3 p.m. Not sure if it's British or Norwegian time, but 3 p.m. or maybe in all countries, I don't know. 3 p.m. on Steam on the 26th and just past midnight on console, as far
fantastic.
as I know. Also, the
And
demo is
I was going to
available.
mention that. I was going to mention there is a demo, right? You read my
Yes.
mind.
And the demo is like an hour of gameplay, I think. So it's a chunky demo.
So you should get an
And
idea of what the game
yes,
is about.
there's
And
also a demo on Helheim Hassel, actually, on both consoles and Steam, I think. So if people wanna, if
fantastic.
they're
So
on the
people have, if you're
fence,
still, yeah, you can, if you're still, I think people will be interested after either listening or watching this interview. I think that you'll really, I mean, I am, and I think just the concepts in each of the three games, that there's clearly something different about all of them. So, is there? I mean, I know you're just releasing this game. You said you had other ideas as well, seven or eight or other ideas. With I don't know what you can say, what you want to say with this cinematic, I don't know, heaven universe, this extended universe. Is do you know what you'll be working on next after hopefully a break? That I'm sure you need a break after this
yeah,
game.
I'm gonna take a good break. Yes, I always know what to what to. I mean, not what to do next, but what's gonna happen um,
Okay.
in the world. I can tell you that they're still gonna be in the the paranormal universe. Also, I can tell you they're not gonna be in the same Tuesday as these games. Now,
Oh, so it'll be interesting.
sick of writing games that take
On a
place the
Tuesday.
same day.
You must hate
Uh,
Tuesdays now.
Oh yeah, I mean we picked the Tuesday because Tuesday is the worst day of the week because that's the day of the week that is the furthest away from the weekend without you having the advantage of just having had the weekend, People say
Yeah, and it's like
Mondays,
what do you talk about? Mondays at least you can talk about the weekend to your colleagues and
yeah, and you're
um
rested, you just slept for 2 days. On
yeah, and now
Tuesdays,
Tuesday's like, oh, we're back in, yeah, no, that's
yeah, Tuesday is the only day where you work the day before and the furthest way away from the weekend. So that's why we picked Tuesday as the bad things happen day. So no, I'll really look forward if we get. I mean, the game has to do well and stuff. If we
hopefully
are
it will.
to,
Hopefully, I'm really hopeful. I think that as I said, it looks fantastic. It sounds great, and the concept, at least I think, is very interesting. So that's why I was like, yes, I really wanted to talk to you about this game. And I imagine there hopefully to be a lot of other people who will be like that, who'll be really eager to play it. So
I
I'm hopeful.
me too. I hope so too because I really wanna explore the universe further, bring in more mythologic characters and stuff. We have more ridiculous gameplay mechanics that are essentially adventure game with something ridiculous added to the top, like the way we like to do things. I really want to write a game where I have free access to all of our characters without having to worry about um you know, oh, they're busy doing something else in a different game now. But I have to be careful with that because if we then suddenly, if that game does well and we're doing another one, and suddenly I figure, oh, no, this game is gonna take place at the same day as the previous one, and then whoopsie, I spent all my characters in that game, so now I have to like be within in a different.
Well, you
But
could
I don't think I'll do that though.
well, you could do like Marvel and just have a multiverse.
Oh yeah,
That'll
yeah,
explain it.
that will be the next. I mean, it's funny you mentioned that. I
Uh,
don't know.
oh,
Just if you
that's the next
play
step.
the
Oh,
if you played the whole Tuesday trilogy and pay a little attention to some details and stuff,
okay.
I'm
So
not gonna say anything.
I'll get back to you on that.
And we also have like a bunch of mysteries in the games that never get answered. There's a mystery called the Mount River Room mystery in Helheim Castle. That's like it's a prophecy for things to come,
Okay.
but you have to like decipher it, and people have been trying for like 4 years. And on the Discord, like they've almost gotten it, they're just missing a few things. So those kind of puzzles, those are the kind of puzzles that you can't just Google them. We wanna introduce, the feeling when you had a adventure game and then you would go to school and then someone would
Yes,
say,
and talk
I
about
heard a
them.
rumor
Yes.
I heard a rumor that this and this could happen, or happens, or that you have to fix it this way. Now, you can't do that anymore because you can just Google it. But on Helheim Castle, we have a character called Milky, for example, and the way he works is that he'll show up once in a random place, not a random place. We put 100 places where he can spawn, and he'll spawn once every save file in that part. And he, so we had this thing like, if you see Milky, take a screenshot of him or say like, I saw him here, post it on the Discord, and it's kind of like a collectible. There's 100 of him, and we were like, and if the community combined finds all 100 Milkies, we'll like release a skin for Björn. And that's a collectible you can't Google. Like you have to talk
Right,
about
right. Yes.
rumors and like figure out where he is. There's
Have
no way of Googling
have
that.
they found 100 yet? Have they reached 100?
We're at about 40, I think.
Oh, so there's still plenty more.
There's plenty more. I have considered to just give the players the skin anyway at this point, because I realized like 100 different places, we would need crazy number of players for
Mm.
them to find them all. Also, there are like console exclusive Milkies. Like there are 20 Milkies that will only show up on Switch and on all consoles. So I was like, I think it's mathematically impossible to find all Milkies. So I'm
Unless
kind
you're
of
playing
doing,
multiple times on different versions, different consoles,
yeah. And people have done that. Like we have fans that have found like 10 Milkies and stuff.
which seems to be
Uh,
like a lot.
Yeah, yeah. So we have like things like that in the Holy Gosh Darn as well, like mysteries that you have to figure out and you can't Google it. It's just
Fantastic. I love that idea again, that to create a community and get people talking about.
yeah, I just want them
Yeah,
to like
yeah, no,
talk about it on this
it's
schoolyard
that's a
or at
fantastic
work.
idea. Yeah, no, well, look, the very, very best of luck. If you're listening, both, well, wish list the game and buy it wherever you buy it, because we want Ozan to keep making more games and keep with this universe and these gameplay mechanics that I think that I haven't seen or heard of anywhere else. So now I could talk to you the whole day, Ozan, but I'm sure you need to eat and I need to eat as well. But it's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope to speak to you again. I hope to see you at some conferences, maybe sometime. Be absolutely fantastic to meet you in person, and I really look forward to playing. Well, hopefully all three games, but definitely Holy Gosh Darn, which we'll hopefully be reviewing on the podcast very, very soon. So, is there anything else that you would like to add before we finish up?
First of all, thank you for having me.
You're
Um,
very, very welcome.
it was a pleasure as well. Thank you for letting me ramble on for as
No,
long as
it's
I
been
did.
very interesting. You were just answering questions that are in my mind. I was like, okay, you seem like you're reading my mind. So,
I mean, not to like plug anything or,
plug
but
away, plug away.
it's we have a YouTube channel
Yeah, sorry,
where
where
we
can people find you? What's the best place that people can find you? So you're perfectly I'll include links in the show notes and in the description if put this on YouTube. But anyway, perfectly paranormal on YouTube.
yeah, we post like some random stuff there as well, but it's always in within the universe, like because I like to talk about the characters and explore them and stuff. And as I mentioned, I don't want to wait 4 years every time something gets like introduced or advances. So we put out videos talking about like demons and stuff in the games. We have several fictional musician characters. One of them gets mentioned a lot in Helheim Hassel, and we make real songs for them, and we put those out with like
Seems like
where
you're constantly adding work for yourselves.
yeah, I mean, I just like I do those so that I can get through a game because I need
Right.
to put out something. So yeah, yeah. So I mean, and the lyrics of those games, those songs and stuff, they'll build on lore from the games. We got the comics that are in Manual Samuel, where you can read stories that are not games. So that's on YouTube and also on Discord. I hang out a lot on our Discord, and if somebody asks like anything, I'll go into deep detail about that thing. Like somebody asked, like, what's the fabric of Manuel Samuel's like jacket? Because I want to make a fan art and I can't like figure out, is it a blazer or is it what is it? And I go into this whole, yeah, well, in the animation. So like no
Wow.
matter what
Okay.
people asks me, I'll just go off. I love talking about the world and the stuff, and I love looking at the fan art people post, or they like discuss among themselves how to do things. Each game has a channel. We have a support channel there if you encounter a bug. We have the I saw Milky channel where you can post screenshots of Milky. We got the channels that let you know when we upload something on YouTube. Our Discord is cool. I love hanging out there. So join our Discord if you want to talk about the lore or the bugs of our games. Or yeah, and also we have the YouTube page, and we're on Twitter and stuff. But Twitter is
I'll
just
include the links in the show
yeah.
notes, and so people can check them out. Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. The time has just flown by, and I genuinely hope to meet you at some point in the future in person. I think the two of us over a beer or something, I think we could talk well into the night.
Yeah.
I have a feeling. So hopefully we can meet. But the very best of luck with the game. I can't wait to play it. And I'll be talking about it as soon as I play it on the podcast as well. And you'll probably see me on the Discord very shortly as
Oh
well.
yeah, you're
We'll
welcome,
be
dude. Yeah,
chatting there. So
come on in.
I look forward to it. Well, thank you so much, Ozan, and the very best of luck.
Thank you.